Welcome to Ghostlore Chronicles. They say on the Chicago Freeway, a truck speeds through the fog with no one behind the wheel. Some call it a legend. But tonight, you'll hear the terrifying truth. I never believed in ghosts or urban legends. Stories of the supernatural were meant to scare children, not grown adults with jobs, bills, and responsibilities. That's what I thought until the night I saw the invisible driver. It was a Thursday evening in September. The Chicago air was heavy and damp, but the city lights shimmered in an almost surreal glow. I was driving home on the Kennedy Expressway. Traffic was thick, everyone impatient to get home. Eyes glued to their phones, fingers drumming on the steering wheel. I often thought about how we spend our lives in these metal cages, barreling down the asphalt, barely noticing the city around us. Then I saw it. A massive 18-wheeler, suddenly barreling past me in the left lane. First, I thought nothing of it. Trucks are everywhere. But something about this one made me freeze. Its headlights were dim, as if clouded by mist, yet sharp enough to cut through the fading daylight. The engine sound was wrong. Too steady. Almost silent for a vehicle of that size. And then I realized it had no driver. I blinked. The cab was empty. No movement. Just the truck, moving fast, weaving through traffic as if guided by an invisible hand. My first thought was some sort of publicity stunt or driverless truck experiment. But the more I stared, the more impossible it seemed. No controls, no cameras, nothing inside. Just nothing. And yet, it moved. I followed it for a few miles, hands gripping the wheel tighter, pulse hammering in my ears. Other drivers seemed oblivious. No horn, no brake lights, no shouting. Just me watching the impossible happen in broad daylight, or what was left of it. Then the first crash happened. A car in front swerved, spun off the freeway. Glass shattered. People screamed. The truck didn't slow down. It didn't care. It continued, as if physics bent around it, leaving chaos in its wake. I slammed on my brakes, nearly losing control, mind struggling to process reality. My phone rang. It was my brother, Mark. I'd called him earlier to let him know I'd be home late. "Dude, you won't believe this," I said, voice shaking. "There's a truck on the Kennedy, and no one is driving it." Mark laughed nervously. "You mean one of those self-driving experiments?" "No, literally no one in it. I've been following it. You'd have to see it to believe it." There was silence on the line. Then he said, "Be careful, man." I hung up, torn between ridiculousness and terror. I had to know what I was dealing with. Curiosity overpowered fear. The truck was leading me somewhere, though I didn't know where. The city lights blurred as a light drizzle began. The rain made everything surreal. The glow of streetlights and headlights distorted, like I was driving through a dreamscape. Then I noticed something else, the license plate. Or rather, the lack of one. No registration, no tags, nothing. Just a blank, metallic rectangle reflecting the city lights. Panic crept in. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Felt like the truck had chosen me. And then the first message appeared. Not on a sign, not on a billboard. On the side of the truck, glowing faintly. "Watch!" I slammed on my brakes, nearly skidding. The truck slowed slightly, but it didn't stop. Then it vanished. One moment it was there, the next gone. No tire marks, no tracks, nothing. I sat in my car, shaking, rain dripping down my windshield, wondering if I'd imagined it. But the aftermath was real. A car had collided with the barrier a few blocks later. Smoke rose from its hood. No one around could explain it, and no one saw who or what caused it. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed the events endlessly, questioning my sanity. But deep down, I knew I hadn't imagined it. Something unnatural was out there on the Chicago Freeway. Something beyond man or machine. The next morning, the news was flooded with reports. Witnesses claimed to see a speeding truck with no driver. Some said it moved too fast. Some said it vanished into thin air. Authorities were baffled. Dashcam videos showed only a blur, a shadow, or sometimes nothing at all. I thought the story would end there. I was wrong. Over the following days, I realized The truck had found me. I couldn't shake the feeling that the truck was watching me. Every time I left my apartment, every time I drove anywhere, I half expected to see it lurking in the shadows of the city streets. At first, I told myself it was paranoia, just my imagination running wild after that first encounter. But then, the incidents began to multiply. A few days after the initial sighting, I was driving to work early in the morning. The streets were mostly empty, the city still yawning awake. That's when I saw it again. The same truck, moving silently down an abandoned stretch of the expressway. No headlights this time, no engine noise, nothing to suggest it was even there, except I could feel it. A presence, like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I slowed my car, keeping a safe distance, watching as it moved with unnatural precision. It swerved around a broken-down vehicle as if anticipating the obstacles before they existed. I wanted to turn around, to run back home, but my curiosity was stronger than fear. Later that day, I started asking around. I needed answers. At a diner near the freeway, I spoke to a few early morning commuters. Most laughed at the idea, dismissing it as a hoax or an overactive imagination. But one man, an older truck driver named Paul, stopped stirring his coffee and leaned in. "You're not the first to see it," he said, voice low. "Some call it the phantom rig. Moves without a driver, leaves chaos behind, then disappears. People who see it, well, they don't always stay sane." I shivered. "What do you mean?" Paul looked around nervously. "I've been driving these roads for over 30 years. Seen things you wouldn't believe. But that truck, it's different, almost alive. I wouldn't follow it if I were you." That night, I couldn't sleep again. Images of the empty cab and the glowing word "watch" haunted me. My phone kept buzzing. Notifications from news apps about traffic accidents. Another crash near the expressway. This time no witnesses could explain it. The pattern was emerging. The truck wasn't just appearing randomly. It was hunting, observing, maybe even toying with whoever saw it. I tried to distract myself during the day. Work, errands, anything to keep my mind off it. But the more I ignored it, the more it seemed to follow. Shadows on the freeway, reflections in store windows, a fleeting silhouette in the corner of all of it felt like the truck was everywhere at once. A week later, I decided to take a different approach. If I couldn't avoid it, maybe I could confront it. I drove late at night, the city nearly asleep, headlights cutting through fog and drizzle. The Kennedy Expressway stretched out before me, empty and silent, except for the distant hum of streetlights. Then, without warning, it appeared again. The truck, moving as if it existed in its own time, detached from the world around it. I followed cautiously, heart racing. It led me into an industrial district I rarely visited, streets lined with shuttered warehouses and broken streetlights. The rain-soaked pavement reflected neon signs in distorted patterns, making the whole scene feel unreal, like a nightmare painting itself in front of me. I parked near the edge of the road, keeping a careful distance. The truck stopped abruptly in the middle of the street. There was no sound, no vibration, only its dark presence. Then, in the puddles on the asphalt, a new message appeared. "Look behind you." My pulse spiked. I spun around. Empty streets, silence, only the echo of my own breathing. I felt a weight on my shoulders, the unmistakable sense of being observed. Not by a person, but something else. I stepped back cautiously, heart hammering, when the truck's engine growled, louder than a machine should, resonating through the abandoned buildings. I ran, didn't stop, didn't look back. By the time I reached the main road, I was surrounded by normal traffic again, the chaos of ordinary life masking the terror behind me. But the memory of the shadow, the glowing warning, and the growl remained, burrowing deep into my mind. That night, I began researching obsessively. Police reports, online forums, local news. Others had seen it too. Stories described a driverless truck moving at impossible speeds, vanishing suddenly, leaving behind accidents with no explanation. Some claimed it was cursed. Others whispered of a restless spirit inhabiting metal and engine. No one knew where it came from or why. And one terrifying truth became clear. It had chosen me. The next day, I decided to talk to someone who might understand. I reached out to a retired detective named Harris, known for investigating unusual accidents on the Kennedy Expressway. His office was cluttered with case files and old photographs, the smell of stale coffee lingering in the air. When I explained what I had seen, he didn't laugh or dismiss me. Instead, he leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You're not the first," he said quietly. "Over the past decade, there have been reports of a truck moving without a driver. Accidents, injuries, sometimes fatalities. But no one can explain it. It's like the road itself has a predator." I shivered. "A predator?" Harris nodded. "Think of it like this. It's drawn to people who notice it. It chooses witnesses, follows them, escalates its actions. Some people, they disappear, or worse, they go insane. The authorities write it off as human error, mechanical failure, or hysteria. But there's a pattern, and you're part of it now." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What can I do?" "First," Harris said, "don't try to chase it. Don't confront it. Most of the time, it's just watching. If you engage, you invite it closer. Second, document everything. Every time it appears, write it down. Photographs, videos, descriptions. We need evidence before it escalates further." That night, I followed his advice, trying to stay calm. I kept a journal, noting every detail: time, location, weather, any other vehicles nearby. And then it happened again. I was on a quieter stretch of the expressway when I spotted it, far ahead. Its headlights flickered like dying stars. I slowed, trying not to attract attention, and reached for my phone to record. But as I moved, the truck vanished, leaving only the echo of its engine. I drove cautiously, but the moment I passed an overpass, I saw the aftermath. A sedan had crashed violently into the barrier. No one was inside, no driver in sight. My hands shook as I realized the truck had left another message, not written on the truck this time, but scratched into the metal barrier itself. "Next time, fear not at me." It was no longer just watching. It was sending warnings. And I knew that whatever this was, it wasn't bound by the rules of this world. Sleep became impossible. Every sound outside my apartment made me jump. Sirens, trucks, even the distant hum of traffic. My mind kept replaying the image of that empty cab, the glowing messages, the impossible maneuvers it had performed. And yet, no one else seemed to truly grasp the danger. Friends dismissed my concerns as stress or paranoia. One evening, I received a call from a local news reporter named Jenna. She'd been investigating the same series of mysterious truck sightings and accidents. "You're not alone," she said, voice tense. "People have seen it across the city. Drivers, pedestrians, even traffic cameras catch it, though the footage is always distorted or incomplete." We arranged to meet near a stretch of the expressway where several accidents had occurred. Jenna had brought a camera, hoping to capture evidence. I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps we could finally prove it was real. The night was foggy, the city quiet except for the distant roar of engines. We parked and waited. Minutes passed. I was tense, eyes scanning every shadow. Then, out of nowhere, headlights pierced the darkness. A familiar, dim glow. It moved silently at first, then faster, weaving through cars with uncanny precision. Jenna raised her camera, recording. The truck stopped abruptly. Then, as if aware of us, a message appeared on the side. "Don't turn away." I froze. My stomach turned. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't. I felt drawn in, trapped by something unseen yet immensely powerful. The reflection of the glowing word shimmered in the puddles, stretching across the wet asphalt like a warning written in fire. Suddenly, a shadow moved inside the cab. Just a flicker, but unmistakable. A figure hunched forward, black and undefined. My heart raced, blinked, and it was gone. The truck revved its engine, a guttural, unnatural sound that echoed across the industrial streets. We backed away, retreating to our car. But the sense of being watched didn't leave. It followed us all the way back into the city, vanishing only when we reached the bright lights of downtown. That night, I realized something chilling. The truck wasn't just random. It had patterns, intentions, targeted witnesses, observing, testing, and I was firmly on its list. The following morning, I started reviewing the footage Jenna had captured. Most of it was distorted blurs, static, flickering lights, but every few frames, I could make out the faint outline of the truck, moving impossibly fast, and sometimes the shadow inside the cab. I couldn't ignore the fact that it wasn't just a machine. It behaved with intention, almost intelligence. Every appearance, every accident seemed calculated. I began mapping its sightings across the city, plotting where it had been and the times it appeared. A pattern emerged, subtle but undeniable. The truck appeared more frequently near busy areas, especially where witnesses were likely to see it. That evening, I returned to one of the most infamous accident sites, a stretch of the expressway near an abandoned warehouse district. The fog hung low, streetlights flickered, and the air smelled damp and metallic. I parked a safe distance away, heart pounding, camera ready. Minutes passed. Then it came. The truck moved as if it had been waiting, gliding through the streets with a precision that defied logic. Its headlights flickered weakly, revealing the empty cab, or so I thought. For a fraction of a second, I saw it. A figure, hunched and dark, almost like smoke, moving within the cab. My stomach dropped. I raised the camera to zoom in, and the truck responded. It swerved sharply, tires screeching, as if mocking my attempt to observe it. Then, the message appeared on the asphalt, illuminated by the dim streetlights. "You can't hide." Panic surged through me. I backed away slowly, realizing the truck was toying with me. It wasn't just passing through. It was studying, tracking, learning. Every move I made, it seemed to anticipate. I returned home that night, exhausted and terrified. My apartment felt suffocating. Every creak, every distant engine roar made me jump. I knew it wouldn't stop. The truck was patient. It had time, and I was trapped in its game. Sleep, if it came, was shallow and broken. Dreams of empty highways, glowing messages, and shadowy figures haunted me. I felt watched even when I was alone. The city had become a maze, and the truck had turned it into a hunting ground. The next day, I made a decision. I needed answers. Not just witnesses or videos, but someone who had seen it for longer, someone who might understand what it truly was. And so I reached out to a former traffic engineer named Lewis, rumored to have knowledge about the more unusual freeway incidents over the years. I didn't yet know what I was getting into. Lewis agreed to meet me in a small, dimly lit cafe on the edge of the city. The place smelled of old coffee and dust, the kind of spot that hadn't changed in decades. When I explained everything, the sightings, the messages, the shadow in the cab, he didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You're lucky to be alive," he said quietly. "Not everyone who encounters it gets to walk away. Most people, they vanish or they're driven to madness. I've studied these incidents for years. The truck isn't just a machine. It's something else. Something that learns." I felt my stomach knot. Learns? How is that even possible? Lewis shook his head. "I don't know the mechanics. I only know patterns. It chooses witnesses, it observes, and it adapts. It's drawn to people who pay attention. Curiosity makes you a target." I swallowed hard. "So what do I do? How do I survive?" "First," he said, "you document everything. Never underestimate it. Second, stay unpredictable. Don't stick to your usual routes or routines. And third," he hesitated, lowering his voice, "some people believe it's tied to the roads themselves, that the expressway has become alive in a way, feeds off fear, chaos, attention. And once it notices you, it doesn't let go easily." That night, I tried to follow his advice. I avoided the expressway, took side streets, varied my schedule. But it didn't help. Every day, I found traces of it. Scratches in fences, strange tire marks in wet pavement, fleeting glimpses of headlights reflected in shop windows. Then came the first direct confrontation. I was returning from the grocery store late at night. The streets were empty, the city hushed. Suddenly, a low rumble vibrated through the air. My car lights reflected off a familiar shape. A truck emerging from the fog, moving faster than any vehicle should. I froze. The cab appeared empty, yet I felt its gaze. The engine growled. Not like a machine, but like a living thing, deep and resonant. My instincts screamed to flee, but my body refused to move. A message appeared, written across the side of the truck in a faint, glowing script. You can run, but you won't escape. Panic overwhelmed me. I floored the accelerator, weaving through back streets, turning corners, trying to shake the sensation of being hunted. But every reflection, every shadow, seemed to echo the truck's presence. It wasn't just following, it was everywhere at once, always just behind, watching, waiting. By the time I reached my apartment, I realized a terrifying truth. This was no random encounter. The truck had made me its target. And whatever it wasn't finished. The next few days blurred together. I barely left my apartment, living in constant dread, watching the streets from my windows. Every rumble of tires, every flicker of headlights, made my heart race. The city had become a labyrinth, and I was trapped in its shadows. Desperation led me back to Lewis. I needed answers, some insight into what I was dealing with. He listened patiently as I recounted the latest encounter, my voice trembling. You're deeper into it than you realize, he said. Most people never survive this long without seeing it daily. Feeds off fear. Every glance, every heartbeat, every thought of it. It grows stronger. You've made it aware of yourself. You're on its radar. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. So what do I do? Hide forever? Lewis shook his head slowly. No, that only prolongs the inevitable. You have to confront it in some way, though how? I'm not certain. There are legends, stories passed down by drivers and engineers. Some claim that the truck can be distracted, drawn away, even trapped, but it's never guaranteed. That night, sleep was impossible. I could hear engines in the distance, feel headlights flicker through my blinds. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the empty cab, the glowing messages, the shadow hunched inside. Then, as if answering my fear, the truck appeared again. I was outside, briefly retrieving something from my car. The fog rolled in, obscuring the streetlights, and there it was, silhouetted in the mist. My breath caught. It moved slowly at first, then accelerated, weaving impossibly between parked cars. A message appeared, glowing faintly on the asphalt. You will see me soon. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The cab's interior shimmered, and for the briefest moment, I saw not a shadow, but a pale face. Featureless, staring, almost human yet wrong in every way. I ran inside, locking the door. My hands shook as I called Jenna. It's back, I whispered. It knows where I am. She didn't respond immediately, then said quietly, we have to be careful. It's aware of us now. Whatever it is, it's learning. I sat in the dark, trembling, as the city's hum felt like a distant memory. The truck had escalated. No longer just a sighting. It was a predator, intelligent, patient, and fixated on me. And I knew, deep down, that the next encounter would not be just a warning. The following morning, I felt drained, almost hollow. Every instinct screamed that I was being hunted, that each step outside my apartment was a gamble with something beyond comprehension. My phone buzzed constantly with alerts. Minor accidents, abandoned vehicles, reports of something moving unnaturally fast through the city streets. Each one I knew was connected. I met Jenna again, this time in a small diner far from the expressway. She had been reviewing her own footage, piecing together locations, times, and witness accounts. It's not random, she said, sliding a notebook across the table. Every sighting forms a pattern, almost like it's studying us. I shivered. Studying us? Why? She shook her head. I don't know, but people who ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist seem to get away, temporarily. Those who notice, who pay attention, get chosen. We planned to stake out a section of the freeway where multiple incidents had occurred. Late that night, we parked in the shadows, cameras ready, hearts pounding. Minutes passed. The city seemed asleep, silence pressing in from every side. Then it appeared, headlights slicing through the fog, moving impossibly fast. I held my breath. The cab looked empty, but I knew better. A shadow flickered inside, hunched and watching. The truck's engine growled, deep and resonant, vibrating through the asphalt. A new message appeared, glowing faintly along the side. "I know you." Fear exploded in my chest. The realization hit me like a punch. This was personal. The truck wasn't just passing through the city. It was aware of me, of us. It had singled us out. We tried to retreat, but the truck moved in ways that defied logic. It seemed to anticipate our every turn, appearing just where we thought we were safe. Every reflection in a window, every shadow in a side street, felt like its eyes on us. By the time we escaped back into the heart of the city, I was certain of one thing. This was no ordinary vehicle. It was something alive in a way I couldn't understand, and it had marked me as prey. That night I couldn't sleep. My dreams were haunted by empty highways, glowing messages, and the shadow in the cab. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the truck's presence, patient, waiting. I realized then that running was futile. It wasn't just a threat anymore, it was a game, and I was the target. The next few days were a blur of paranoia and obsession. I barely left my apartment, scouring news articles, online forums, and social media for any mention of the truck. Each report, each blurry dashcam video, confirmed my worst fears. It wasn't just me. People across the city had encountered it, each sighting more terrifying than the last. Jenna and I decided to widen our investigation. We reached out to truck drivers, traffic reporters, and even retired highway patrol officers. Many laughed or dismissed our inquiries, but a few, older drivers, men and women who had spent decades on the expressway, spoke in hushed tones about a phantom rig that had haunted the roads for years. Some refused to elaborate, crossing themselves or muttering about curses. One night, Jenna suggested we try something different. Follow it deliberately, but in a convoy. A few trusted drivers agreed, armed with cameras and recording devices. We met at a remote stretch of the expressway after midnight, the city almost silent except for distant sirens. We waited. Hours passed. Then, out of the fog, headlights appeared. A familiar, dim glow. The truck moved as if it knew we were there, weaving between lanes with impossible precision. I felt my stomach knot. The cab seemed empty, but I knew it wasn't. Messages appeared on the asphalt in a sequence, glowing faintly. "You watch. You follow. I watch." Fear gripped the group. Even the most experienced drivers paled, gripping their steering wheels as if their lives depended on it, because they did. Then, in the blink of an eye, the truck accelerated, vanishing into the fog. Every camera caught only a blur, a shadow, a flicker of light. The convoy tried to pursue it, but it was gone, disappeared without a trace. When we regrouped, Jenna and I shared a glance that said what words could not. This wasn't a machine malfunction or a prank. It was intelligent, calculating, and it had learned from our attempts to study it. That night, I realized the horrifying truth. The truck wasn't just appearing. It was hunting, testing, learning, and I was in its sights more than ever. Sleep became a distant memory. I spent nights staring out my apartment window, watching every street, every passing vehicle, every flicker of light. Every shadow seemed alive, every reflection in the wet pavement a potential warning. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was near, always watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Jenna and I decided to try one final method, mapping every reported sighting over the past few years. We pored over newspaper archives, online forums, police reports, and even unofficial traffic blogs. Patterns emerged. Intersections, curves, overpasses, locations where accidents seemed to happen without explanation. Each spot formed a network, a web of chaos across the city. It was as if the truck knew the city better than anyone alive. Late that evening, I ventured out alone, armed with only my camera and notebook. I followed a route I had never taken before, twisting through lesser-known streets and industrial alleys. My heart raced with every turn, every flicker of distant headlights, and then it appeared. At first, I thought it was a trick of the fog, a dim glow, distant, almost imperceptible. But it moved closer, faster, gliding across the pavement with an unnatural fluidity. Its cab appeared empty, yet the shadow inside was unmistakable, hunched and black, like a void. A message appeared on the side in glowing letters. "You can't escape me." Panic consumed me. I stumbled back, fumbling with the camera. The engine growled, a low, resonant vibration that made the ground beneath me tremble. I ran, turning corners, ducking into alleys, trying desperately to lose it. But every time I paused, every time I dared to look behind me, I could feel its presence. It wasn't just following. It was everywhere, manifesting in reflections, shadows, fleeting glimpses on wet asphalt. By the time I reached the main avenue, I knew a horrifying truth. This entity wasn't just a truck. It was something beyond understanding, something that fed on fear and attention. And it had marked me permanently. That night, I sat in my apartment, trembling, replaying every encounter. The city seemed quieter, but the silence was deceptive. I knew it was still out there, waiting, watching, learning, and I realized there would be no turning back. The following days were the longest of my life. Every routine trip, every errand, every glance outside felt like a gamble. Even mundane things, a trip to the corner store, a walk to the mailbox, filled me with dread. I never knew when or where it would appear. Jenna and I began interviewing witnesses more systematically. We spoke to cab drivers, delivery workers, night shift employees, anyone who spent time on the roads after dark. Most were hesitant, some refused to talk, but a few admitted to seeing the truck. Their stories were consistent. Empty cab, impossible maneuvers, glowing messages, and a shadowy figure inside. One man, a security guard who worked near a warehouse district, shivered as he recounted his experience. "It watched me," he whispered. "I swear, it knew my name. I ran, and when I looked back, it vanished. But I know it's still there." We began to realize that the truck wasn't bound by time or space in any conventional sense. It could appear, disappear, and reappear wherever it chose, seemingly predicting human movement before it happened. It was intelligent, patient, and methodical. One night, I decided to test its limits. I drove to a part of the city I rarely visited, streets lined with abandoned factories and empty lots. The fog rolled in, thick and heavy, muffling every sound. I parked in the shadows and waited. Hours passed. The silence was oppressive, the city seeming to hold its breath. Then, a faint glow appeared in the distance. The truck moved with impossible speed, weaving through the streets, its headlights dim but unmistakable. Messages appeared along the asphalt. "You see me. You fear me. You belong to me." I froze, heart hammering. The cab shimmered for a moment, and the shadow inside became clearer. Not fully human, not fully machine. A void, a presence staring directly at me. I stumbled back, breathless, and realized the truth I had been avoiding. This wasn't just a driverless truck. It was something alive, something ancient and intelligent, using the city as its hunting ground. And I knew, without a doubt, that it would not stop until it had me completely in its grasp. Days turned into a blur of fear and vigilance. I barely ate, barely slept, constantly watching, constantly listening. Every time a truck engine rumbled in the distance, my chest tightened. Every flicker of light on wet streets made me jump. Jenna and I decided to escalate our research. We tracked accident reports, eyewitness accounts, and even social media posts in real time. Slowly, a chilling pattern emerged. The truck appeared more frequently at night, often in areas where witnesses were likely to notice it. It wasn't just moving randomly, it was calculating, selecting, and stalking. One evening, I ventured to an old industrial district. The streets were deserted, puddles reflecting the flickering streetlights. I parked in a shadowed corner, gripping my camera tightly, waiting. Hours passed with nothing. My nerves frayed, my mind racing. Then it appeared. The truck glided into view, headlights dimmed, moving in ways that defied physics. Its cab looked empty, or so I thought. For a fleeting moment, a shadow moved inside, hunched, featureless. My breath caught. A message appeared on the asphalt, glowing faintly in the fog. "You cannot hide forever." I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The engine growled, deep, resonant, almost alive. It seemed to sense my fear, feeding on it, growing stronger with every pulse of my heartbeat. I ran, weaving through alleys and side streets, desperately trying to escape. But the feeling of being watched followed me relentlessly. Every reflection in a window, every shadow along the street seemed to echo its presence. By the time I returned to the safety of the city's lights, I realized one terrifying truth. This entity wasn't just a truck. It was a predator using the roads themselves to hunt, observing, learning, adapting. And I was its target. That night, I called Lewis and Jenna. We needed a plan, some way to confront or understand it. Whatever this truck was, it wasn't going to stop. And the next encounter would be inevitable. The following morning, I felt the weight of exhaustion pressing down on me. Nights of vigilance and fear had taken their toll. Yet I knew I couldn't ignore it. The truck was still out there, waiting, calculating, ready to strike. Jenna and I decided to return to the industrial district where we had our previous encounters. This time, we weren't just observing, we were documenting, recording, and mapping every detail. Every street, every turn, every shadow could hold clues. We parked near a shuttered warehouse, fog curling around the dim streetlights. The city was eerily silent, the kind of silence that makes your own heartbeat deafening. Hours passed. Then, faintly, the glow appeared in the distance. The truck moved like liquid steel, weaving through abandoned cars with impossible precision. Its cab seemed empty, yet a shadow flickered inside, hunched, watching. Messages began to appear on the asphalt, glowing faintly. "You think you understand. You don't." A chill ran down my spine. I raised the camera, zooming in, but the image remained distorted, blurs, static, flickers. The truck's movements were too fast, too fluid to capture fully. Suddenly, it accelerated. The fog seemed to bend around it, the glow intensifying. I could hear a low, resonant growl vibrating through the street, a sound that was not mechanical, not natural. My pulse quickened. Jenna grabbed my arm. "It knows you're here," she whispered. "It's aware of everything you do." We retreated cautiously, heart pounding, but the sensation of being hunted didn't leave. Reflections in windows, faint glimmers in puddles. Every corner seemed alive with its presence. By the time we returned to the main roads, I understood something terrifying. This was no ordinary truck. It was a being, a predator, feeding on fear and attention. And it had chosen me. That night, I sat in the dark, shaking, the city alive with distant, unidentifiable sounds. The truck's presence felt omnipresent. I realized then that my life had been irrevocably changed. The predator on the freeway wasn't just a story. It was real, and it was patient. The days that followed were a constant struggle between fear and obsession. I couldn't focus on work, on friends, on anything else. Every moment was spent listening for engines, watching for headlights, feeling the shadow of the truck creeping closer in every reflection. Jenna suggested we broaden our search even further. We began analyzing traffic camera footage, scouring every intersection and overpass for anomalies. Many of the videos were inconclusive, blurs, flickers, strange distortions, but a few frames captured it clearly. The truck, gliding at impossible speed, cab seemingly empty, a shadowy figure hunched inside. We interviewed more witnesses, too. A night shift convenience store clerk described seeing the truck pass through a deserted street, leaving a trail of fog and glowing words on the asphalt. "You are mine." Her hands shook as she recounted the sighting. It wasn't real, but it was. I don't know how else to explain it. Each encounter left me more certain of one thing. The truck wasn't just a machine. It was intelligent, patient, and relentless. It didn't just appear, it stalked, observed, and learned. Every blink, every glance, every moment of attention fed it, made it stronger. That night, I drove alone, trying to confront it. The city was quiet, streets empty, fog rolling in. And there it was, appearing out of nowhere, headlights dimmed, cab empty, or so it seemed. A new message appeared, glowing faintly. "You cannot escape. You belong to me." I froze, realizing the full scope of what I was facing. The truck wasn't random, it wasn't mechanical. It was a predator, alive in a way I couldn't understand, feeding off fear, feeding off attention. And now it had truly marked me as its prey. I turned the wheel, hands shaking, heart racing, knowing that my next encounter would be inevitable. The nights grew darker, heavier, as if the city itself had become a stage for the truck's relentless hunt. Every creak in the apartment, every distant hum of engines, sent jolts of fear through me. I barely slept, instead staring out windows, scanning the streets, listening for the faintest rumble that might signal its approach. Jenna and I devised a plan. If we could predict its movements, maybe we could document it fully, or at least understand its patterns. Using witness reports, traffic cameras, and news stories, we mapped the city like a grid, highlighting the intersections, overpasses, and stretches of freeway where the truck appeared most frequently. Late that night, we stationed ourselves on one of the highlighted roads, cameras ready, hearts hammering. The fog hung low, muffling sounds, bending the light of distant street lamps. Hours passed. Silence. Then, faintly, a dim glow in the distance. The unmistakable signature of the truck. It moved through the streets with impossible precision. Tires making no sound, cab empty, or so it seemed. A shadow flickered inside, hunched, watching. Messages appeared on the asphalt, glowing faintly. "You think you know me. You don't." Panic surged through me. I raised the camera, hands shaking, trying to capture it. But the image remained distorted, blurred, flickering, almost unreal. Then it accelerated, moving in a blur, its engine growling in a deep, unnatural tone that resonated through the empty streets. I stumbled back, heart racing, realizing the truck wasn't just a vehicle. It was alive, intelligent, calculating. We retreated, ducking into side streets, our senses heightened. Every reflection, every shadow, seemed to hint at its presence. By the time we returned to the main roads, I understood the terrifying truth. The truck was a predator, patient and relentless, and I was firmly in its sights. That night, I sat in my apartment, trembling, realizing there was no escape. It was only a matter of time before it confronted me directly again. The days that followed were a haze of fear and hypervigilance. I couldn't go anywhere without scanning the streets, the alleys, the parking lots. Every shadow seemed alive, every flicker of light a potential warning. Even inside my apartment, I felt its presence, as if the truck were always nearby, always watching. Jenna and I decided to analyze the accidents more closely. We compiled reports, videos, and eyewitness accounts, trying to discern a pattern, a weakness, or some clue about the entity behind the truck. The stories were eerily consistent. Empty cab, impossible maneuvers, glowing messages, and that haunting shadow inside. One night, I ventured out alone, determined to see it for myself. The city was quiet, fog curling around streetlights, creating ghostly reflections on the wet pavement. I parked in an alley, camera ready, heart hammering. Hours passed. Then, the glow appeared in the distance. The truck moved silently, gliding across the street as if it weren't bound by gravity or friction. Its cab appeared empty, but for a fleeting moment, the shadow inside became visible, hunched, watching, almost human yet not. A message appeared on the asphalt, glowing faintly in the fog. "You will not escape me." I froze. The engine growled, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the street. Every instinct screamed to run, but part of me couldn't look away. The truck seemed to feed on attention, growing stronger with every heartbeat, every glance. I retreated, weaving through alleys, trying desperately to lose it. Every reflection in windows, every shadow along the street seemed alive, watching. By the time I returned to the city lights, I realized the horrifying truth. This was no ordinary truck. It was a predator, patient and intelligent, feeding on fear, and it had chosen me. That night, as I sat trembling in the dark, I understood that the hunt had only just begun. The next morning, I woke with a sense of dread heavier than usual. Even in daylight, the city felt different. Every street seemed like a potential trap, every intersection a place where it could appear without warning. I couldn't ignore the reality any longer. The truck wasn't just a machine. It was something else entirely, something alive, patient, and calculating. Jenna and I reviewed all the footage we had collected so far. Most of it was blurry, distorted, but in every clip, the same elements appeared. Impossible speed, empty cab, shadow inside, glowing messages. The consistency was terrifying. It wasn't random. It was intelligent. That night, we returned to the expressway, hoping to catch it in action and gather undeniable evidence. Fog rolled in, heavy and thick, muffling the distant hum of the city. We parked near a stretch of road where multiple incidents had occurred before. Hours passed. Then, a dim glow appeared in the distance. The truck moved with impossible precision, weaving through the streets like it was a part of the city itself. Its cab seemed empty, but for the briefest moment, the shadow inside flickered, hunched, watching. Messages appeared on the asphalt. "You cannot hide. You cannot run." Fear gripped me. The engine growled, low and resonant, vibrating through the ground beneath us. I felt its presence in every shadow, every reflection, every corner of the fog-laden street. We tried to retreat, but the truck responded. It appeared in front of us, then behind, then to the side, moving in ways that defied explanation. It was studying us, testing us, feeding on our fear. By the time we escaped back into the heart of the city, I understood one undeniable truth. This entity was no longer just a mystery. It was a predator, and we were its prey. That night, I barely slept, haunted by the thought that the next encounter might not allow for escape. The nights grew longer, the fog heavier, and the city felt increasingly like a maze designed to trap me. Every time I stepped outside, every glance down a darkened alley or empty street made my pulse quicken. I knew it was out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Jenna and I met again, poring over maps, witness accounts, and video clips. The patterns were becoming clearer. The truck favored certain routes, certain intersections, almost as if it had a hunting ground within the city. It wasn't just moving randomly, it was strategizing, calculating, learning from every encounter. One evening, we stationed ourselves near a bridge that had seen multiple incidents over the years. The air was thick with fog, damp and cold, muffling the sounds of the city. Hours passed. Then, faintly, a glow emerged in the distance. The truck moved with a precision that defied all logic, weaving between abandoned cars, tires making no sound. Its cab appeared empty, but for a fleeting moment, a shadow moved inside, hunched, black, observing. A message appeared along the wet asphalt, glowing faintly. "I see you. You cannot escape." I froze, heart hammering, as the engine let out a deep, resonant growl. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive, aware, feeding on the fear that radiated from me. We tried to retreat, taking side streets, doubling back, but the truck anticipated our every move. Every reflection in a window, every flicker in the fog seemed to echo its presence. By the time we reached safer, busier streets, the city felt different. Haunted, alive, and dominated by something we couldn't understand. That night, sitting in the dark, I realized the truth. This was no longer just a mysterious truck on the freeway. It was a predator, intelligent, relentless, and it had chosen me. There would be no escape. The final night arrived with a weight I could feel in my chest. The city was quieter than usual, the fog thick, streets deserted, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I knew it was coming for me. There was no running, no hiding. This was inevitable. Jenna met me one last time, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. "We can't just observe anymore," she said. "We have to confront it. Document it fully, or it will never stop." We drove to a stretch of expressway where the truck had appeared the most over the past weeks. Every muscle in my body was tense, every nerve screaming in anticipation. Hours passed. Silence. Then, a dim glow appeared in the distance, growing brighter, moving with impossible speed. The truck glided toward us, tires making no sound, cab empty, or so it seemed. For a fleeting moment, the shadow inside flickered, hunched, almost alive. Messages appeared on the asphalt, glowing with a sinister light. "You belong to me." Fear consumed me. The engine growled, deep and resonant, vibrating through the steel and asphalt beneath us. Every instinct screamed to flee, but I knew this was it. The confrontation had come. We raised cameras, documenting every movement. The truck moved around us, weaving with impossible precision, appearing in reflections, in shadows, in the fog itself. It was watching, learning, feeding on our fear, growing stronger with each heartbeat. Then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, the shadow in the cab seemed to rise, stretching, reaching, almost human, almost wrong. I felt a chill that pierced to my bones. It wasn't just a truck. It was something ancient, intelligent, patient, a predator of the city. And as the glow of the messages faded into the mist, I realized the inevitable truth. There would be no escape, no safety. The truck had claimed its prey. I drove home that night, shaking, my hands white on the steering wheel. The city seemed normal again, yet I knew the hunt wasn't over. Somewhere, in the fog, on the streets, it was waiting, watching, patient, and I would never be free from it.